just do one interview, or do you have to do a bunch?
Just one.
At least in communication, you know about how to use cameras, don't you?
Yes. Okay, the first question, what made you decide to have a career in political science, and what inspired you to want to be a teacher?
I just always found history and politics interesting, going back to really childhood, and I'd hear my father and grandfather talk about the Civil War, and they knew participants in the American Civil War. They're relatives, and that just got me started in history. And then in college, I was majoring in history and decided to switch over to political science, and I really had planned to go to law school, but political science just remained so interesting to me, the study of government, that especially international relations. And I just stayed with it. I had, as far as wanting to be a teacher, I had a lot of really good teachers all the way through school. I think I maybe have one or two people who probably should have been in another profession. So I had a lot of good models, and I tried to draw on their teaching style and find my own way.
Is there any certain teachers that you can remember, or certain professors that helped to shape?
Well, yes, the professor, the major professor I had in graduate school that I did most of my graduate work under, his name is Vernon Van Dyke. He's pretty well known in his field, and he was his personality is very different from mine. He was a very quiet, reserved man, very smart, but he gave me a great deal of guidance, and I'm not sure I'd have made it through without him, frankly. So I had a professor at Wake Forest also that I liked quite well. His name was Jim Anderson. We had nicknames for all our teachers. For some reason, we called him Diamond Jim. I have no idea. And there's a history professor we called Daddy Klontz. The guy had been a veteran of World War I on a ship. But anyway, they were just models of people who lived comfortably. They weren't in it, obviously, to get rich. They lived comfortably on Faculty Row. They had time to talk to people and be available to students. And generally, kind, good people. Many of them World War II veterans, in both college and graduate school, and had seen a lot of hard things and came back and were good, humane people.
And so what, after graduate school, what made you decide to come to USC Upstate to teach?
Well, when you come out of graduate school, and it will really depend on well, there's always a market in about everything. And you could come out, or you could start in college and think you're going to be an electrical engineer, and you study that, and the field's wide open. Well, in 4 years when you graduate, it's tightened up a lot. And that's what happened to me in wanting to teach in international relations. So the offers I got were from several small schools where you're going to teach a variety of subjects, and that was quite all right. There was a college in West Virginia I liked quite well. My wife at the time did not. It's pretty far back in the mountains, and I grew up like that. I was comfortable with it. But anyway, she talked me into coming here, and I haven't regretted it. I've really enjoyed my career here.
So has it been different? You said the West Virginia, was
Well,
different?
Yes.
Adjusting when you moved down?
Yes, West Virginia was a much more established college. It was a four-year teacher college, and it had been around there for a long, long time. But this school was just really getting up and running. When I came in 1971, there was the one administration building and a flagpole, and that was it. There was about 36 people who were employees and approximately 350 students. And you knew your seniority in the pecking order based on your parking sticker, because I think mine was number 34 that year. So I got there a few days ahead of number 35 and 36. And the dean of the school, Dr. Sturzger, he would have number 1. And then the person who would serve as his assistant, he'd have number 2, and then on down. And it's so small that a lot of times we've been in a room like this at lunch, and most everybody be there eating lunch together. You bring your lunch, and everybody just knew each other quite well, and it was very young faculty. A good many of them had master's degrees and weren't necessarily expecting to go on to a PhD. And now that would, long since, that's been mandatory, and we got well over 5,000 students. So it's just, it sprung up like a mushroom in the spring rainfall. But it's turned, always say really good people, I think. And a lot of strong sense of camaraderie and young faculty. You move, your friends come over and pick the furniture up with you. You borrow trucks, you haul furniture. Somebody arrives with a big moving van. They're driving it themselves to save money, and you don't even know them, never met them. You get a phone call, you just show up and start unloading furniture.
Talking about that, how when it just used to be the administration building when you first got here,
Yeah.
how has USC Upstate changed with over the years, and how the campus is set up, and talking about how the faculty is risen,
Yeah.
and just talk about
Well, there were some marked stages, because when we started out, it was definitely a 2-year school. And I think it started in 67, 68 in the basement of a nurse's dormitory. And I wasn't there for that, but first year or two, about the second year that they were in the administration building, I was there. And we were a 2-year school, and we registered people with IBM cards. That's the way the computer, have you ever seen those? They used to be everywhere. And that's how your computer programs and your data sets and all, and you put them in a hopper and push them through, and the machine would literally physically suck them in, and based on where the holes were punched, that's the data that went into the electronic part of the computer. And we actually had a vending machine on campus with little stacks of IBM cards, and put in 50 cents or $1, whatever, get you a stack of them and go to work. But and we would register people on different floors. If you wanted certain courses, you'd have to go up to the 3rd floor or to the 2nd floor. We had to use our space the way we had to use it, and so registration was very physical and pretty long and drawn out. And now you might even register yourself, or sit down with an advisor and type in the courses, and you're ready to go. Or you get a code that allows you to go ahead and put yourself in. And I've watched a lot of changes in that kind of process. The registrar's office, of course, has really felt the impact of the computer. And all of that's just become more and more modernized. And there was this time we had the VIP system, record your grades and all. And I think the registrar at that time told me I was the first one who did it successfully. And that was a miracle. That was dumb luck, beginner's luck. That's it, we're good with computers. But that was a big stage. We had kind of a slogan, 773, because they're going to let us have junior level classes. And then we wanted to go for 1,074, and then we'd become a baccalaureate institution. And then a few years later, we were dividing up into colleges, as a university will do, College of Education and College of Business and so on. So that was a big change, a big stage. And then, of course, watching the physical plan of the campus. When I came here and had the administration building, under Dr. Hodge's leadership, you've probably heard of him, G.B. Hodge, and he wanted a school that would support a nursing program. And the county came up with about 70-some acres, which is a lot of land, and took over what had been a pretty good peach orchard. And since then, land around has been bought up there from a number of different people. And lots of buildings gone up, and there'll be more.
Talking about, because of where USC Columbia, what do you think that, how do you think, and have you seen, some people from Henderson, Spartanburg, kind of still want to live in have a hometown feel, instead of going to a bigger school like South Carolina, picking to choose, go to the USC Upstate and be closer to home than
I've seen that as a fundamental pattern. A lot of times it's because they've got good jobs here. they're working in their family business and making pretty good money, more than they would for minimum wage in Columbia or up at Clemson. And a lot less competition looking for jobs here, I suspect. So we've always had kind of a work ethic among our students, because so many of them have fit college into their work lives and social lives. Young people love their peer group. I can't get my grandson to come and visit me because he won't leave his girlfriends long enough, but he's about your age. But the environment of the campus at one time was very, very much oriented to the day student. In fact, for a long time, that's all we were. And then gradually we started accumulating housing. And so now you have students coming from further and further away, all over. We're properly named now the upstate, because all of the northern counties supply us with students. And we have a goodly number of students from other countries. So it's just changed dramatically in that sense. But I do believe there is these two patterns, one residential and the other go cheaper because I can stay at home and I have a job here because I'm from this area. So you have these patterns, and that's okay. That's quite all right. I think you would probably find that in most universities today. But yeah, I can remember like yesterday. That was a big selling point for us. We're right here local. You can live at home and save money. That was the big selling point. But gradually we came to offer so many more courses and teachers and majors, and just I know schools are really expensive now. I know they are. But our school has been listed by U.S. News and World Report as the best buy. And it is. It's a lot of money, but it's still a good buy, relatively speaking, comparing to other schools. But I like the variety. I really do. I like the fact that it's coeducational. There are many different kind of majors. We used to make a distinction, and maybe they still do, between the so-called university student and adult student, people that maybe are married and got kids and they're working and trying to go to school, guys coming back with veteran benefits, going to school, just a lot of variety, and that's wholesome.
How do you think that the students since 1971, how have they changed, like the way that the certain students, or talking about that, more variety from different states?
Yeah.
Have you noticed any change in the type of student?
I would say that it's a very generalized change, but you go through cycles where students seem to be abstract thinkers and true liberal arts thinkers on the one hand, and then group come through that for a few years they're very pragmatic. They're here to get a college education, to get a good job. And I have talked with parents before over the years, what will my son do with this degree? Where will my daughter work with a degree like this, and so on? And I think on a lot of campuses across America, and really at about the same time, you have this wave of pragmatists, and then you may have a wave of people that are just very, in the traditional liberal arts sense, just interested in learning for learning's sake. And to be honest with you, if you can kind of pull those together, that's really the healthy way to do it. Our students are going to marry, they're going to raise families, they've got to have jobs, good jobs. And at the same time, you want them, and almost any of your college teachers are here because they just love their subject. And you want your people to leave school feeling that way, that communications is just important because it's communications. And you might can write a dozen term papers about that, but in general, you just feel it's important.
What were some of your favorite colleagues or people that you worked with over the time? What are some of your favorite colleagues or people that you associated with?
Oh, I still have some very good friends. We meet, there's several groups of retired faculty here now. This is our first wave of retirees, because when we came here, we were very young. I started here when I was 28 years old, and well, Donald Knight's a very good friend of mine, Andy Cross, and we meet to get together for lunch. We're meeting tomorrow, in fact, for lunch. John Evans is the world's greatest character. He's a history teacher here at Indiana for many years, and he's a loud, bombastic man. he could hardly remember to tuck his shirt in, but he never forgot a fact. You know, he's smart guy. But he's a character, and there was a fellow here. His name is Jim Sloan. He's here for a few years when I first started. And poor fellow, I think he sometimes felt a little bit insecure. He's one of the fellows with the master's. There's nothing wrong with that. And I was the first political science teacher hired with a PhD, and I think he made him a little bit uncomfortable. But we got to be good friends. I respected what he knew. But it was very important to him that he have that number 2 sticker on the car. And the guy in charge of that would be taken out for a very nice meal. He'd served in the legislature once. So he's used to this kind of, I do for you, you do for me.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So he was always wanting a bigger desk, so people got some cardboard and fastened it on his desk and made leaves stick out of cardboard. And they just kind of tease and pick at him like that. But he's a smart guy. There have been a lot of people here that I've liked and always enjoyed. I was just talking to Fred Wentz, that retired from teaching criminal justice. And of course Ed Babin teaching geography. There are dozens of them. And not just faculty. I mean, there have been secretaries here. Mary Murph, she was the secretary to the dean when school very first opened. She and he were, I believe, the first 2 employees. And Dr. Sturziker, that really got the school up and running, poor man, he now has Alzheimer's. But I didn't really notice any change until about a year or so ago. It hit him hard and fast. But he's a real hard-charging kind of guy, very loyal to the people he hired. And so my generation, my group, a lot of times they still meet with him and his wife and eat, even though he doesn't say anything now. But they feel a strong sense of loyalty to him because he was loyal to you. And if he hired you, you were his guy and he looked out for you.
What advice would you have to aspiring teachers that would want to come teach at USC Upstate?
Well, be prepared for a lot of busy work. I guess that's the thing that hit me the most, that I wasn't prepared for. And it's probably all around me in college and graduate school, and I just didn't see it. Maybe the professors were so competent that they didn't seem perturbed by it like I was. But it's a busy, busy life. I always called it the job of 1,000 details instead of 1,000 cuts, like a torture. Just passed by my friend Richard Combs, and they're grading stacks of blue books. If I had all the blue books that I've graded, I couldn't stuff them in this room. I need a hay baler. And it takes up a lot of time. And then all kinds of committee work. You're thinking about coming out with your PhD, you want to teach, and you're thinking about talking to a student, like kind of like you and I are talking, and talking about a term paper. How's best to study for one of my tests kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's teaching. And then classroom lecture. And you're not thinking about all that busy work that's going to hit you in the face. And your neighbors think you're coming home and just sitting around all weekend watching football. You're grading papers. And it just amazed me how much administrators always thought you were extensions of their jobs. You were always doing things they want you to do. And they it seemed like they always thought teaching took care of itself. It's just so easy. But I would say be prepared for all of the busy work, and don't let it undermine your sense of joy of teaching.
How do you think, what do you think USC Upstate, how is it going to look like in maybe about 20 years? And how do you think it's going to evolve or change even more?
I think it'll probably be on both sides of Highway 176 in terms of physical growth. and maybe keep moving toward Interstate 85 the other way. I don't see any likelihood that it's not going to grow physically, because it is in an area, one of the faster growing areas. And sometimes it's been ranked among the 10 fastest growing areas of population and economics. So the prosperities there to provide a tax base. I think physical growth, it'll be in spurts, but I think the physical growth will continue. And so far as academics, I think you'll probably see more colleges added in time, probably. I wouldn't be surprised to see an engineering school at some point. It may or may not happen. It might be something else. Maybe it'll be a medical school. Maybe this will be where they'll put the first veterinarian school in South Carolina. They might put it in Orangeburg, but anyway, it'll be just your normal physical growth, more buildings, more programs, more complexity. Probably there'll be parking garages going straight up instead of spreading out, like downtown.
Yeah, that's very convenient. That
Oh, yeah.
Parking garage.
Yeah, isn't that a nice building down there?
It's really nice.
That's clever, I think, putting it in the downtown too. I would not have thought of that. And I think other colleges are doing it, trying to connect with the community.
What can you talk about? What are some of your memories that you have about teaching at Upstate and just being at Upstate since 1971?
I can remember some periods of time where we had some, once in a while, really difficult students. You know, if you have 5,000 people here, it's possibly you're going to have some people that are disturbed, mentally disturbed, frankly, emotionally disturbed. People that might not really understand the difference between proper social norms and criminal behavior. And I have seen some situations like that. I had a student, for example, in one of my classes that, well, several times, students have tried to be very intimidating, threatening, and I'm not the only one. I mean, that's happened to other teachers, and it's happened on other campuses. 99 out of 100 nice young people. But, you know, you could have somebody, it could be some kind of trauma or stress they've gone through, or terrible treatment. It's their but I had a young man, I remember his name, I won't say it, but I remember his name some years ago, that he didn't bring the gun to school as far as I know, but he threatened to bring a shotgun to school and shoot me because he was making B's in my classes in one of the days. And one day there was an old Vietnam veteran, huge man, been in the Green Berets, 4 tours. I remember his name, but I won't say it. And boy, he put that guy straight in a hurry. he did. But anyway, I've seen some sad situations like that, and that's what they are. They're sad. They're very angry, repressed people, and I don't know why they showed up like that. They may have been that way since childhood. I had a young man come here. He'd been hurt in the Vietnam War, and he couldn't possibly take courses. His mind wasn't right at all, and he'd been in some kind of explosion. Part of his hand was missing, and his wife, based on high school grades, was bringing him here. We were babysitting him, and he didn't last very long. But we have had some people where the security guys have had to take them aside and say, look, this is not going to be tolerated, and put them off campus. I remember a faculty member. I mean, you know, faculty members can have emotional and mental problems too. In fact, they may be more prone to it. But I remember a guy, they packed his books up and took him to the campus police station and told him that's where you pick your books up and then don't come back.
How have you handled, like, when you had a student that was maybe mad about a grade, or handled conflict between faculty or even students?
For some years, there's just no protection about it. And although I never had anyone show up with a fist or a gun, but there were some threats like that. And I think other faculty could probably tell you the same thing. But about 10, 12 years ago, different administrator, the different chancellor, and also the faculty just realizing that it was out there as a problem. And they tightened up with certain rules about it. We have rules, and we have a really good police department now. And you know, you can give somebody notice, if you're doing this way and that way, and it's not healthy or wholesome to the class, you have to go. If you don't want to fit, get. And now we've had, the last chancellor was very good, and I'm sure this one is. He came in right after I retired. And it seems to me a very good police department here. But when I started, there was no police department, and not really much support by a former administration about these kinds of problems. But I think it just became, and I'm not talking about anything that hadn't happened on other campuses. It's just, we're a society, and out in the Spartanburg County, we have about 290,000 people, and there's some people in this county that will commit crimes. There's some people here who have mental problems. There are people here that damage their brains from drugs. And you can find it in Union County, you can find it in New York City, you can find it in downtown London, England. It's just human society.
How do you feel that USC Upstate is different in other universities you've been at, and just how is it different than other, and why would you decide, why do you think it's a good pick for someone to come to this university?
Okay. Well, my experiences were in a little bit different kind of colleges. I went to Wake Forest, and it was then a college. It became a university. And it was a college. It was a small southern campus, and 2,000 students, and everybody's very friendly, and that kind of thing was encouraged. And then I went from there to a very large Midwestern university, University of Iowa. And it was not, well, it was probably the smallest of the Big Ten. And it was very, very business-like, different environment. And graduate students really working hard to survive and make it. USC Upstate, I'll talk about what it seemed to grow into as opposed to the beginning. It was a very nice blend. You didn't have very many graduate students. There you have, I think, 2 small education graduate programs. There may have been something added. I haven't taught here in 6 years. So it's still essentially an undergraduate school, and it's a nice mixture. A lot of really good, hardworking, talented faculty. And it's the size to where, say you want to set up a club or an organization, there's probably going to be, whatever the subject is, you'll probably find some students that are interested in it, because you have a pool to choose from. And but it's small enough to where you can get to know a lot of people. You can get to know the students, and you get to know the other faculty. One of the things I kind of regretted about our growth was that I felt isolated a lot of the times from other faculty. I would see people out with the faculty sticker on their car, away from campus, and I don't know, or be introduced to somebody in my neighborhood who's teaching here, and he's been here 5 years, and I never met him. And you're in a different department or different building, and unless you serve on a campus-wide committee with them, or in the faculty senate, you may never meet them. That's kind of sad, but that's just part of size. It's just part of size.
Do you, like in 1971, or back then, when you talked about you could all sit in the same room?
Yeah.
So you like that more, kind of knowing everybody and being...
I like both, and it was okay to change. I liked the way we knew each other and the way we pitched in and helped each other. I built a little barn on my property once, and 3 or 4 of the men faculty came out and helped me put it up. And that kind of friendships are hard to beat. It's kind of like if in the military, an army looks out for its own. Some guy gets called up and he's going to be deployed. Well, you just adopt his kids or his dog if you need to. The officer next door, and you they take care of each other. And so it was that kind of environment. But then it was okay to move along, and when we got bigger, that meant I got to teach more specialization. I wanted to teach IR, and I wanted to teach international law, and I got to do it. So both are good.
And how did you feel when the campus did evolve, where you did get to teach international relations?
Well, I felt real glad about having those more specialized courses. It helped me do a little bit of writing. Could think more about things I was really, really interested in. And it's just, it's more satisfying. I taught, American government's required of everyone. I don't know if it is now or not, but it was then. And I taught it many, many times over and over and over and over again. And I tried to make it interesting for me and them as well as I could. But the classes were real big, and a lot of people are taking it because it's required, whereas if you're teaching international law or American foreign policy and a few other things, people are probably signing up because they're really interested. So it was kind of a mixed situation for me. If I could have taught altogether in IR in that field, I probably would have. But the school isn't big enough yet, so that a political science teacher will probably be excused from teaching basic American government. And for some people, that'll be their specialty. So, lucky them.
And how has the teaching, have you changed, on American government and things like that, how would you change your teaching over the years since 1970? Was it pretty much you taught the exact same thing? I added and changed courses, and we try them out. I might teach something for a couple of years, and if it didn't really build up a strong attendance, I might drop it and start over. It's more work that way. But it gave me variety and helped me to stay fresh. So that was good. And I don't know. It's hard to say. I guess that if I didn't really mind teaching American government. It's just I minded teaching it as often as I did, because I'd have 2 sections every semester. And you know where the Tukey lecture hall? Yes.
Well, before they remodeled it, they taught me into teaching a big section in there, and I would have anywhere from 75 to 140 students in that one room. And we managed, but it wasn't ideal.
And talking about that, did you with the 75 students, did you like the teaching more of the 20 students in a class?
I did. I preferred the smaller classes because they're going to ask questions and get more involved. And I don't know what it is about a huge classroom. It just seems to intimidate people. I don't know why. You can go in like in Columbia, they might teach us 600 students in a section of chemistry, and you feel like you're part of an army.
What features did you like about USC Upstate that kept you teaching here for so long?
Well, it wasn't just that I liked it here. I did like it here quite well. I liked the area. I felt very lucky to be here because I grew up in North Carolina, and I could go and visit my parents in 2 hours and 15 minutes. And now I can still visit my sisters. So I like that. You're not terribly far from the coast, whether you want to go to Charleston or Pawleys Island or what have you. So it's just, it's a very nice area. I always told people when we were recruiting new faculty in that interview here, I'd say you have 4 distinct seasons, and none of them are really harsh. Now, July lately has been pretty bad, the humidity, but there are 4 nice seasons. The pace of life is reasonably comfortable. The traffic's getting pretty bad, but South Carolina people, I think, more than most folks, have good manners. It's just, it's a nice place to live. But I was always fairly well satisfied with this school. I mean, I've spent my whole career here. I suppose I could have changed if I really tried hard enough, but I didn't have a serious motive to change. It wasn't like oh, I never get to teach what I want to teach, or I never have time for research. You know, I didn't have those things driving me. And one other consideration is most faculty are married, and when you marry and you have children, it's harder to just pull them up out of their friendship circles and move. So people do it, but you know, you're unplugging something that may go awry.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Have y'all seen Miss Tammy Park today?
No.
Thanks.
What do you miss about teaching and being at, since you're retired, is there anything you miss?
Absolutely, I miss interacting with nice young people like yourself. Miss it a lot, and I guess I could have taught part-time, but I set out to write a second textbook when I retired, and I finally got it done. Been at bed at loose ends since then, but I'll find something else to work on. And I do see some of my old friends, and I still have a few friends that teach here, but I can walk across campus on a given day and not see anyone that I know. Never did that happen before.
What does it mean to you to be able to work at USC Upstate and have a great career that you did from 1971?
What does it mean to me?
Yeah, how do you feel like when someone says that you've been here that long and been such a great figure for USC Upstate?
Well, I don't know if it's a great figure, but I guess I feel gratification. I feel like I did something that was reasonably important. It was a good, honest job, and I paid my taxes from it. I ate well, and I just feel lucky.
Talking about your book after you retired, what inspired you to first start writing Understanding International Law?
Well, I used some books that were written in a highly legalistic manner, which obviously you can't object to too much because it is law. But I felt like it needed to be set down into more of a political context to really understand it, where the law comes from and why it's there, and not just think in terms of, say, strictly speaking, briefing cases and try to figure out fine points of court cases that oftentimes aren't really controlling what's going on in the world in the first place. So I found that the textbooks, some written by lawyers, some written by political scientists, were heavily laden with legal concepts and needed more of a social science setting. And that's why I like the title the word understanding.
What was your biggest challenge in writing that book?
I think it was just the massive amount of material that was out there. I taught the course for 10 or 12 years, and I thought I knew the literature and everything pretty well, but especially in this age with the computers and digital books, electronics, data sets on file and accessible. It was just, between the two textbooks, the world had really changed about the manner of research. And I guess just the burden of trying to cover as much as I could. A good textbook is a synthesis of your ideas and the best work in the journals and in the books that exist. And you're trying to put it down in a meaningful way so that a typical junior, senior history or political science major can understand it, and hopefully even be interesting. And that was another thing. I didn't think some of the textbooks were very well written, and I hope to work on just the writing. And it's just it's just a look. It's like trying to swim with a couple of weights on your shoulders or something. It's just, you're wanting to focus on quality chapter to chapter, and yet the quantity coming in on you feel like it's a giant hopper, and it's coming down into a funnel and pounding you on the back. Writing can be kind of hard on families too. It was pretty hard on my wife because I was very focused on that. She's saying, let's travel, here's a brochure, let's go here, let's go there.
How long did it take you to finally finish
Oh, I
the
think
book?
it probably took me, let me think, I guess it's probably around 4 years or so. And one year I was still teaching, and the rest of the time I was retired. But part of writing a book like that is deciding early and quickly what you're gonna use and what you're not. And some of it I had kind of worked out. But if you were focusing on this book while you're teaching the course and already making these choices as you go along, and then even maybe building the chapter around some of your lecture notes, you're better off. You got a head start, and I hadn't really done that. So it was a very, very time-consuming project. But I'm sure there are people who could find shortcuts, smart, clever people, and people that are better with computers than I am.
Was it hard that year when you were writing the book and still teaching?
Oh yeah,
Was it
very,
hard on
yeah.
you?
And my first textbook I did entirely while I was, well, I had a semester or maybe 2 semester sabbatical, but that was very difficult. And there are people though that do it, and do it with some regularity, and my hat's off to them. Some people are smarter than others. Some people can work harder than others. Some people, their husband or their wife is more cooperative than others. Some people can operate for weeks on 4 hours sleep a night. I'm not one of them. I'm going to be a very grouchy person.
When you finally got the book done, Understanding International Law,
Mhm.
how did you feel about finally getting it done, and what does the book, and the other book, mean to you?
Well, I just wanted to lay down on the floor and pant. I was tired. It was a great relief to have it come out, and a very good publisher. And it's done fairly well. It's not breaking records, but it's done okay. And it was a huge relief, and I worked on a paper. I'm still fiddling around with it on about international law, or the laws of war that emerged from the American Civil War. So it's a historically set paper. So I'm working on that, and it gives me time to, I can go straight in my garage now if I want to, and walk my dog if I want to, and have a little more time just for simple pleasures. Watch a movie. I like to save movies on the TV, and then play them later. And going out to eat with friends. It's just, in other words, being alive and not being in a cocoon of books all around you. And you're, the second publisher for the law book is a very good publisher, but there was a lot of pressure about deadlines, just one deadline after another, and that drumbeat, having to get it all done was tiresome. But there again, some people are stronger emotionally, and they can take all of this better than others.
Do you see yourself eventually writing another book, or?
I don't know if I'd write another book. If I do, it probably won't be a textbook. You're having to build this huge synthesis of so much material. If it were another book, it'd probably be something really specialized, where I have more control over the material, and not something I write. Textbooks are they have a strong commercial dimension, and it just be something that I want to write on for writing's sake.
What do you want people, future students and faculty to USC Upstate to maybe remember about you, or anything that you are proud of during your time at USC Upstate?
I would just want them to think of me as just a good, solid journeyman teacher who did his work the best he could, and probably made some mistakes that I didn't want to make. I'm sure there are people left here thinking, well, I should have had it was amazing how many people when I was teaching who thought they were supposed to have A's. They got all A's in high school. Why couldn't they have A's here? And when I was in college, a gentleman C was quite all right. But somewhere along the way, a lot of grade inflation happened. And I'm sure there are people left disappointed or angry, but if they did, I'm sorry. But I always did the best I could and what I thought was right. And that's what I would want them to think of me. Okay, I didn't always agree with that guy, but he was a good, honest teacher.